You are Keola. The year is 1848. You are one of only 3 men who know California's greatest secret. Morning arrives long before the sun. The first sound you hear is the distant crow of a rooster somewhere near the cookhouse. Moments later, a horse stamps against the hard ground inside the corral, followed by the deep, familiar grunt of oxen waiting to be yoked. Thin ribbons of smoke begin rising above the camp as breakfast fires come to life, carrying the smell of wood smoke, bacon, and fresh bread into the cold mountain air. You pull your blanket aside and sit for a moment listening. The world sounds exactly as it did a month ago. That almost makes you smile. Almost. Only a few weeks have passed since you stood and watched tiny flakes of yellow metal glimmer beneath the morning sun in the American River. You still remember the excitement in Marshall's voice, the disbelief on both your faces, and the long ride to New Helvetia to tell John Sutter what you had found. Since that day, every sunrise has felt different. Not because the valley has changed, because you have. You wash your face in the cold river and join the other men before daylight reaches the tops of the pines. No one speaks of gold. One man curses a broken axe handle. Another jokes that the cook burns everything except coffee. 2 teamsters argue over which pair of oxen is lazier. Someone laughs so hard he nearly spills his tin cup. Their conversations drip through the morning air as naturally as birdsong. You find yourself listening more carefully than ever before. Not because of what they're saying, because of what they aren't. No one knows. The secret is still safe, for now. The work begins with the first light of day. Axes bite into towering pine trees. Cross-cut saws sing through fresh timber. Men strain together as thick logs are rolled toward the unfinished mill. Boots sink into the damp earth while wagon wheels groan beneath impossible loads. The smell of fresh-cut pine fills the valley. It is a good smell, an honest smell. You throw your shoulder against another massive timber. Push! Several men lean beside you. The beam slides into place with a heavy thud. One of the younger workers wipes sweat from his forehead and grins. If this mill gets any bigger, he laughs, Marshall's gonna have us building ships next. The men around him laugh too. You laugh also. Marshall hears the joke but never looks up. Instead, he continues studying the great water wheel taking shape beside the mill race. Every board is measured, every peg examined, every beam adjusted until it's exactly where he wants it. Anyone watching would think he is focused only on the sawmill. You notice something else. Every few minutes his eyes drift toward the river. Only for a heartbeat. Then they return to the work. You understand. Without speaking, the two of you share the same burden. Every log you lift helps build Sutter's dream. Every glance toward the river reminds you how fragile that dream has become. By midday, the winter chill has disappeared. It grows warm beneath a bright California sun. You stop only long enough to drink from your canteen before returning to work. As you reach for another timber, movement near the river catches your eye. One of the laborers has wandered away from the others. He kneels beside the water. At first, you assume he's filling his canteen. Instead, he simply watches the current. His eyes follow the gravel beneath the clear water. Only for a few seconds. Then he stands and walks back toward the mill. Your hands freeze on the timber. Did he see something? Did he notice anything unusual? Or is it your imagination beginning to betray you? Before the discovery, you never would have paid attention. Now every glance toward the river feels important. You finish lifting the timber, but your thoughts stay with the man by the water. The gold has changed more than California. It has changed the way you see people. The afternoon passes slowly. A wagon arrives from New Helvetia carrying supplies, flour, nail, barrels of salt pork, fresh horseshoes from the blacksmith. The teamster climbs down and stretches his aching back before greeting Marshall. While the 2 men speak, you unload sacks of grain with another worker. The teamster lowers his voice. You cannot hear every word, only pieces. Travelers, more arriving every week. Questions. Marshall nods once. The conversation ends almost as quickly as it began. The teamster climbs back onto his wagon and disappears down the trail. Questions. The word stays with you. Questions about what? The river? The mill? Or something else? You tell yourself not to worry. Yet worry follows you anyway. As evening approaches, Marshall dismisses the crew. "That's enough for today," he says. "We'll finish the wheel tomorrow." The men cheer. Some head for the cookhouse. Others wander toward camp. One of the Hawaiian laborers calls your name and asks if you're coming for supper. "In a little while," you answer. He nods and continues walking. You begin gathering your tools. Behind you, Marshall speaks quietly. "Keola?" You turn. When you're finished, he glances toward the river. "Walk with me." The two of you leave the trail without another word. The farther you walk from camp, the quieter the valley becomes. The ringing of hammers fades. Voices disappear. Soon only the river remains. The American River moves with the same steady confidence it has carried for thousands of years. It doesn't care about sawmills. It doesn't care about settlements. It certainly doesn't care about gold. You wonder if rivers ever know the lives they change. Marshall stops where the mill race rejoins the river. Neither of you speaks. You simply stand there watching the current. Finally, Marshall kneels and trails his finger through the cold water. "Do you ever come back here by yourself?" he asks. "Sometimes," you answer. "What for?" You think about the question. "I'm not sure." Marshall smiles. "I know." He looks back toward the flowing water. "I do the same thing." You kneel beside him. For several moments, neither of you says another word. Then Marshall breaks the silence. "I've been carrying something." You already know what it is. "The meeting with Sutter?" Marshall nods. "I keep hearing him say history would remember my name." He sighs. "I don't think I've slept well since." You pick up a smooth stone and roll it between your fingers. Sutter only made the decision he thought would help protect New Helvetia. Marshall shakes his head. "Maybe. He wasn't trying to erase you." "No," Marshall looks directly at you. "But he did." The words settle heavily between you. You stare across the river before answering. "When I left Hawaii, I never imagined history would remember my name." Marshall says nothing. "I came here to work." You toss the stone into the current. "I still have my honor." Marshall steadies your face. "Doesn't it bother you?" You smile faintly. "Of course it does." The honesty surprises him. "It bothers me every day." You pause. "But it doesn't change what happened." You point toward the river. "I was just standing right there." And you point at the water and say, "I saw it, and I'm changed forever." I look back at the water, and I know the river knows the truth. Marshall lets out a quiet laugh. "I suppose that's enough for the river, and enough for me." Marshall stands and walks another 50 yards upstream. "Come here." You follow. He stops where the river bends gently around a broad gravel bar. He points toward the slow-moving water hugging the bank. "What do you see?" The current slows. "Why?" You study the bend before answering. "The river has farther to travel around the curve." Marshall smiles. "Exactly." He crouches and picks up 2 stones, one large, one small. He tosses the smaller stone into the swift current. It bounces away almost immediately. Then he places the larger stone into the slower water. It barely moves. "The river sorts everything," Marshall says. He brushes aside the top layer of gravel. Dark streaks appear beneath the surface. "What do you see now?" "Black sand." Marshall nods. "Most men are too busy looking for gold to notice it." He lets a handful of black sand slip slowly through his fingers. But the river leaves clues. You lean closer. Marshall points toward the dark grains. Gold is heavier than almost anything around it. He draws a line through the gravel with a stick, so the river hides it beside other heavy things. He looks directly at you. "Don't chase gold," he taps the black sand. "Chase the signs." You nod slowly. For the first time, you understand. Prospecting isn't gambling. It isn't luck. It's paying attention. Marshall smiles. Most men spend their lives fighting the river. He sweeps his hand across the bend. "You'll do better if you let the river teach you." You look downstream. The American River suddenly seems different. Not because it has changed, because you finally know how to read it. Marshall dusts off his hands. "I've decided something." You wait. "You should begin prospecting." You laugh softly. "Sutter would disagree." "He probably would." "The mill still needs us," you say. "It does." You fold your arms. "Then why do you tell me this?" Marshall looks toward the fading sunlight reflecting off the water. "Because the secret won't stay buried forever." You don't argue. You can't. Both of you have begun noticing the same things. The questions, the strangers. the curious glances toward the river. When the word gets out, Marshall continues, this valley will fill with thousands of men. He turns back toward you. You discovered this gold. His voice is steady. I want you to have the first chance to build your fortune before the rest of the world arrives. The two of you stand in silence. The river whispers past your boots. A cool breeze carries the scent of pine through the valley. Finally, you nod. Only after the day's work is done. Marshall smiles. I wouldn't expect anything less. As darkness settles over the valley, you begin the walk back toward camp. Tomorrow will begin like every other day, before sunrise. Breakfast fires, axes, sawdust, timbers. But tomorrow, before the other men awaken, you already know where you'll be. For the first time since discovering the gold, you won't be walking to the mill. You'll be walking to the river.